Guardian Druid is your classic easy mode tank, and for many players that's great. When I hit a bowl a little too hard, this is the tank I default to before deciding to fall asleep watching Shrek 2 curled up on my couch, probably crying halfway through a bag of homestyle popcorn. There isn't too much to understand about this beautiful beast. Cast Thrash and Mangle on cooldown, and just spam Iron Fur before rage capping. Guardian Druid has been playing like that for a long time, and with little changes. While I would love to say that's what's going to change in the next patch, it just isn't. But Guardian Druid is getting a few more adjustments, which has a lot of players dusting off their bear alts from Legion, and in this video, I'm going to be talking about those changes and my general opinions. Let's dive in. Since the launch of Dragonflight, Guardian Druids have been getting a lot of minor adjustments here and there. They got some early damage buffs, then a slight talent or pathing rework during the 10.0 patch, then another mastery buff, and once again we're seeing more changes to their tree in 10.1.5. Not only that, but the 10.1 player health increase aura benefited Guardian Druid significantly. With healing like Frenzied Regeneration and Renewal being percentage based, Guardian Druids can now recover more health per second to make up for their healers. Their new tier set for this season also benefits them across the board, with major increases to their main abilities like Thrash and Mangle, to a Stagger-esque type defensive that mitigates 6% of all of their damage taken, to a 15% increased max health. Players have noticed that bears are incredibly stable in the current meta, and are sitting in a nice healthy middle of the pack spot for the tanks. Even in terms of their kit, while not groundbreaking, and honestly slightly inconvenient, Guardian Druids can snag some useful utility to help out healing checks, dispels, or CCs. All around, Guardian Druids are awesome in this current season. Before we get into the changes, I want to walk through what current bears are playing on live servers in terms of Mythic Plus. Here we are on live servers, and there are two main builds that players are running. First, we see players playing down towards the middle of the tree, picking up Vulnerable Flesh along with Tooth and Claw. Players pursuing higher keys tend to drop these and lean more into defensive talents with Reinvigoration and Earth Warden. Either way, you're seeing a pretty defined build. So let's talk about the changes. First things first, we are seeing a shift in multiple talents. Dream of Cenarius is moving up and replacing front of the pack. Thorns of Iron is being removed from tier 3 to tier 2, which is a pretty major shift. There's also going to be new pathing on the left and right side of the tree, accompanied with more lateral movement. Incarnation will now grant access to Raise and Rage of the Sleeper, which is a super net gain. These talents were locked behind specific pathing in 10.1. A few other changes are the position swaps between Pulverize and the choice node between Rend and Tear and Untamed Savagery. Changes that I'm very excited for. There are also some buffs and nerfs to a few of the talents as well. Galactic Guardian, notably, was, in my opinion, massively nerfed. The reason for this isn't in the text, but in the way it now interacts with aura buffs and procs. Currently, on live servers, Galactic Guardian procs will consume each other, meaning that the new Moonfire proc will deal 300% increased damage and generate 8 rage for you. Now, in the new patch, that will no longer consume, but instead just overwrite the aura. This is going to be a pretty sizable loss in damage. Also, I'm not sure if this is a bug, but the free Moonfire proc also doesn't benefit from Twin Moonfire, meaning that Moonfire applications will be fairly manual going forward. They will also have a bad habit of just reapplying to the same target, which can be slightly annoying. This to me is a reason to start leaning away from the Galactic Guardian playstyle. This significantly impacts the gameplay and the damage reduction component of the right side of the tree. That's not to say that it's not going to be used in certain situations. I'm sure it'll be really strong in raid and single and 2 target encounters, but with other talents getting buffed, I'm sure it's likely we're going to see a shift. Alright, while Moonfire is getting ripped to shreds, there are a lot of cool things happening on the left side of the tree, hinting at a physical meta for the Guardian Druid. Let's start with the first tier. Dream of Cenarius now being up here makes it extremely easy to pick it up as a talent. Nothing is really changing about the aura, but it's now easier to take in pugs or to save your idiot friends when they're standing in a frontal. One step below shows off a newly reworked Innate Resolve. While it still grants an extra charge of Frenzied Regen, with this talent it'll now increase Frenzied Regen's healing based off of your missing health. A callback to the old school Frenzied Regen from Legion. This puts a lot more agency into the Guardian Druid's healing kit, which is just awesome. Most builds were playing this anyways, but if you happen to be skipping this, you'll definitely be more inclined to pick it up going to the next patch. It's now much easier to pick up Rend and Tear, like I said before. This was a staple of the Shadowlands and even Battle for Azeroth Guardian Druid, so I'm excited that it's no longer going to be a capstone. Even better, Flashing Claws will now allow Thrash to stack up to 1 extra time per point. So this puts Rend and Tear DR up there with Scintillating Moonlight, but unlike Moonfire, Thrash Bleed will be applied to all targets hit by Thrash, making stack accumulation much quicker. With the increase in stacks, we obviously see higher ticks of the bleed, rivaling that of the Moonfire damage. While this would still be a damage loss since we're no longer going to have access to both dots instead of now just one, it'll at least provide some damage increase. For me, this is a win. While Galactic Guardian looks cool, I'm just kind of over it personally. So to quickly summarize, Moonfire talents are seeing a nerf in proc consumption, which results in less direct damage, slower application, and now requires more manual consumption to benefit from the rage generation. The physical build, on the other hand, is increasing the stacks of Thrash, resulting in higher dot damage, increased damage reduction for uncapped pulls, and access to extra rage and healing through Ursoc's Fury. Regardless of the preferred build, we're also just gaining easier access to Dream of Cenarius and an insane buff to Innate Resolve. Last but not least, I want to briefly mention the super minor class tree change. They moved Improved Sunfire to its own branch and added a new talent called Rising Light, Falling Night. This is a more appropriate 1-point node that will allow bears to shift off of Nurturing Instincts, no pun intended, basically gaining a free point where you can spend that on Wild Charge, Hibernate, or another stack of well-honed instincts. Not sure how this will benefit other specs, but I can't complain about a free point to spend. So what are my thoughts? In terms of playstyle, nothing much will change going into the next patch, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Though, I predict a shift from a Moonfire type build back into a very Thrash-centric build with the new talent tree changes. We're just gaining faster acquisition of Thrash stacks, better pathing, and arguably a better, more consistent damage reduction in larger pulls. More than likely, we will see this being the play in higher keys, but again, there is nuance to this in terms of composition or key level. There is a reason a lot of players are picking up Bear for the new patch. And another reason why a lot of content creators, including Dratnos, Dorky, and Tactics, are all on the hype train about this tank. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Like I said, I'm personally really excited for these changes, and I'm excited to see a lot more bears running around in Mythic Plus going into 10.1.5. I want to give a quick shout out to my Patreon supporters. Without them, there wouldn't be content like this, so thank you guys. I hope you're all staying happy, healthy, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace.